Welcome to our last 3 history lessons. We only have 3 more lesson videos together for history. Awesome, guys. So, next couple of days while we finish out our year, I just want to talk about Rome's decline with you. We're going to spend a couple days talking about why did Rome fall. We've been talking a lot about the Roman Empire, how they started, how they were a republic, how they were an empire. We talked about Rome, republic to empire. And we're going to finish out with the fall of Rome. The past couple days we talked about Roman life. Next couple days we're going to talk about the fall of Rome, and that will be all for History 6. So make sure you have your notes, something to write with, something to write on. You're going to want to take these notes for the last couple of lesson videos, including today's. So again, something to write with, something to write on. You don't have to give it a unit name because it's just going to be a very quick unit. But today's section that you want to write your notes about is a troubled empire. So you want to label this section at least. We're going to call it a troubled empire. And when we talk about the troubled empire, we're of course talking about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire. Our guiding question through this is going to be, what problems led to Rome's decline? What problems led to Rome's decline? What were the cracks in the window, the cracks in the wall that led to the crumbling and the eventual fall of the Roman Empire? What problems led to Rome's decline? What crushed Rome? What finished it off? What did the job? That's our guiding question that you'll be able to answer hopefully by the end of this video. Now, hopefully you recall and remember from Rome, Republic to Empire, when we last left the Roman Empire just a few days ago, we were talking about the Pax Romana, this era of peace in Rome, the Roman peace, if you will. We left Rome in a time of peace, a time where things were going well, they were prosperous, and the Roman peace comes, but unfortunately, Marcus Aurelius was one of the emperors we talked about. He was the last of 5 emperors who reigned during the Pax Romana, and after that, about a century, about 100 years of confusion and violence followed. So you can write down in your notes, after the Pax Romana, Rome experienced civil war for about 100 years. The army grew stronger as the government weakened. It's up there for you, and I'll say it again. You can write it down in your notes. After the Pax Romana, Rome experienced civil war for about 100 years. The army grew stronger as the government weakened. So after the Roman peace, there's not peace. There's chaos. There's confusion. There's civil war. And it lasts for about 100 years. And while this civil war is happening and raging, the army people are getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and the government's getting weaker. The system is falling apart, and what's now the Roman Empire at its core is starting to crumble and shake. Now, we've talked about Rome having a few other civil wars. We talked about ones with different General Sulla, like before the time of Julius Caesar, even some after the Julius Caesar events with his murder and him being killed, and then eventually leading to Augustus Caesar, which led into the Roman Empire moving from a republic to empire. But this is a different set of civil wars. Like a lot of historical places, eventually there's civil war, the people divide, they start to get in fights and arguments. One of the big things they were fighting and arguing about is who should be the emperor, who should be the ruler. The military was strong, and all the military people argued which one of their guys, or maybe one of them, should be the ruler of the time. And as a matter of fact, this became such a problem, you can write down your notes, Rome had 22 different emperors over a span of 50 years. I'll read that again and you can write it down. Rome had 22 different emperors over a span of 50 years. Can you imagine? Almost every 2 years, there was a new leader. Again, almost every 2 years. That's not good at all for a country. I know in America we have presidential terms of 4 years, but you don't always want a new leader, especially of a big place like Rome. It's good to have a consistent leader, somebody who's good at what they do, somebody who's fair, somebody who's just. But over 50 years, Rome had 22 different emperors that were in and out. A lot of them were getting killed. They were getting betrayed by their military or their people. Some got murdered. Some got killed in different battles and war. So there was a lot of death, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. Again, 22 different emperors over 50 years in this Roman time. It's kind of like a light switch. If you've ever played with a light switch in your room or another part of the house and you flick it on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. It's the same thing with Roman's emperors here. There's on, they're off. The one's in, then he's out. In, out. He's on, he's off. He's on, he's off. There's a lot of change. Again, almost every 2 years they were changing, switching up. So it was not a good situation for Roman leadership and Roman government. Along with all these changes with leadership and emperors, there's other changes that are happening with the Roman people, and I want you to write this down in your notes. That values of duty, courage, and honesty changed, support of education declined, many people stopped paying taxes, and food shortages and inflation increased. I'll read that again and you can write it down. Values of duty, courage, and honesty changed, support of education declined, many people stopped paying taxes, and food shortages and inflation increased. So the people, the citizens, they're not feeling the duty to Rome anymore. They're not feeling courageous. They're not feeling honest. People stopped worrying about education and gaining knowledge. Many people just stopped paying taxes altogether, and Rome couldn't really do anything about it because they were in such trouble and chaos. And food is getting short and inflation is going up. If you don't know what inflation is, we'll talk about it in just a moment. But all around, it's not looking good for the people. It's not looking good for the leadership, and it's not looking good for Rome. Inflation, you can write this down in your notes. You might have heard this term before. It deals with economics and money. But inflation, you can define in your notes, it's an increase in prices with a decrease in the actual value of money. I'll read and say that again for you. You can put it down in your notes. Inflation, an increase in prices with a decrease in the actual value of money. During this time, people were poor. They wanted more money. Say a merchant was selling a jar of spices. His prices are going up because he's poor and he wants money. But they were running out of precious resources in Rome like silver and gold, which is what their coins and money were made out of. So they start making them with cheap metals. So the coins aren't worth as much, but the prices are going down. The prices are going up. The coin value is going down. The coins are made with cheap metal that's not as good, but the merchant and the farmer are charging more prices for their goods. It's kind of like money tug of war. Prices are going up. Value of the money is going down. It's tug of war. It's causing a problem and a friction, and we call it inflation. And it deals with coins and a money system, talking about trading and bartering for those items and paying to get those items. Now, all this is maybe making you dizzy and confused, and if it is, then you feel like Romans, I'm sure, in this time. Again, there's not much education. Taxes are going up. Some people aren't paying their taxes. There's a lot of inflation, problems with food, problems with leadership, and they're starting to feel like this dizzy, hulking giant of an empire. We talked about the Incredible Hulk, comparing it to Rome, but they're probably feeling dizzy. And you know what happens when somebody gets dizzy? Sometimes they fall over, and that's coming very soon for Rome, that they're going to get so dizzy that they collapse. And if things weren't bad enough already, you should write in your notes that Germanic and Persian tribes attacked the weakened empire. I'll read that again for you. Germanic and Persian tribes attacked the weakened empire. So things are already bad enough, and then these two tribal peoples nearby, the Germanics and the Persians, these tribes attack the weakened Roman Empire. They decide they're going to take advantage of Rome's weakness and try and knock down and push over this giant empire. They're going to try and push it down, get rid of it, run them out of town. So you wrote that down in your notes talking about the Germanic and Persian empires. Here's a way to think of it, and I'll give you this illustration. So the Germanic tribes are west of what we would call Rome and Persia. You can see it over here. It's on the map. This is a map a little later than the empire found, but it was a good example to show you around where Persia is. So one group starts putting pressure on them from the west or the northern areas, and the other kind of comes from the east and is putting pressure on them, and a little bit south. So they're getting pressure from the west and the north, the south and the east. They're getting this pressure. It's kind of like a can. It's getting squeezed, and the Roman Empire is getting pressure. On the inside, the infrastructure or the core of Rome, their people are stressed, their leadership is stressed, and also they're getting stressed from the outside. They're getting stressed from the outside, stressed from the inside. Things are not looking good. Now, they did make an attempt to make something better, and I want you to write this down in your notes that Diocletian, an army general who became an emperor, tried to reform Rome but failed. I'll read it again for you and you can write in your notes. Diocletian, an army general who became an emperor, tried to reform Rome but failed. So you got this guy, Diocletian. He was an army general of the time, one of the generals who ended up becoming emperor because he got so powerful and he got so many people behind him. He became emperor. He tried to reform Rome. To reform means to try and change something politically. So he tried to change Rome, but he did fail. One of the things that he did is he actually told people they had to stay in their same job until they died. You can only have one job, and that was your job for life. But It didn't work. He failed. He tried to reform, tried to change Rome. He was an army general, ended up becoming emperor. Name was Diocletian, but he failed ultimately. He did have some ideas, and again, he was trying to urge the people of Rome. He tried to strengthen the economy. He set prices for how much people could charge for different things. Again, he had that idea of everybody gets the same job until they die, so hopefully they'll work harder at it. And he also made different rulers responsible for taxes, so the taxes could be enforced and they could get that money. But the problem is that people ignored his rules. They ignored his rules, and he wasn't strong enough to enforce them. So sad Diocletian, because the people ignored him. It didn't work out. They just ignored him, didn't listen to what he said, and all was done. Well, guys, that was pretty short, talking about what's building up to the fall of Rome. Spoiler alert, tomorrow on Friday we'll be talking about the fall of Rome, but we'll get to that on Friday. For today, this is just talking about the troubles that Rome was going through. It's setting up the background of this time. So, guiding question, what problems led to Rome's decline? You could talk about political confusion with leaders and a lot of different leaders changing in civil war. You could talk about economic weaknesses or problems with inflation, food shortages, money issues. You could talk about invasions with the Germanic tribes and the Persian tribes. You could even give some credit to Diocletian for trying to fix the problem, trying to change things up, but ultimately he was unsuccessful and it didn't work out. So there was a few problems, a lot of different problems that led to Rome's decline. These are all problems and steps in the road of Rome's decline. One last thing I want to talk about before I let you go. So there is a economics activity for you to complete today on Thursday for homework credit points. So I'm going to have you do that. That's your assignment on LMS. It's talking about inflation a little bit more, especially inflation in Rome. I know you might not be super familiar with economics. You might not know a lot about inflation or money systems, but I'm going to have you do that assignment. It's going to teach you a little bit more, give you some background, even some neat background on Roman coins and how Roman coins were made. So that's there for you. It's just a brief reading, answer some questions. That's up on LMS. Make sure you complete that, turn that in by Thursday night. This is Thursday's lesson, so turn that in by Thursday night, that economics activity. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll get into the fall of Rome. We're almost done with History 6 together, so hang in there with me. Again, do that economics activity today for Thursday to follow up talking about this troubled empire. Awesome, guys. I'm proud of you. I'm praying for you. Keep up the great work. Keep being awesome, and I'll talk to you all soon.